Hi guys and ladies, Ramsey here. Welcome back to another video. Today I have a Perfumers portfolio video and a special one at that. And the reason it's special is I actually started the day thinking that I was only going to do a Perfumers portfolio video on one person. And that was Olivier Polge. And then I realized as I was going through his repertoire of fragrances that I couldn't just do it on him. I had to do it on both Olivier Polge and Jacques Polge the father, because so many of his works for Chanel have his father in them. So I just couldn't do one without the other. So you're getting a bonus feature today in that we're going to do both. We're going to do Olivier Polge, and we're going to do the old man, Jacques Polge, because they are linked at the hip together. In fact, I want to read you something. Well, a couple things I find interesting. First, Parfumo does these interesting fact blurbs on each perfumer, okay? The important ones, let's say. Well, that's not fair. I shouldn't say the important ones. I should say maybe the more famous or more well-known perfumers who are in-house perfumers for brands and stuff like that. So Olivier Polge, the current in-house perfumer of Chanel, he has an interesting facts blurb, which I will read you in just a second, but Jacques Polge doesn't. And that really struck me as odd because Jacques Polge is one of the most influential perfumers of the last 4 decades, whatever it may be. But I want to read you the Olivier Polge blurb simply because I think it shows just how tied together these two are, father and son. So it says, Olivier Polge could be described as a perfumer against his will. The senior creative director for Chanel's fragrance segment originally wanted to follow in his father's footsteps and learn the craft of a nose. However, his dream of becoming a concert pianist fell through due to his talent. Born in Grasse in 1971, the son of Chanel legend Jacques Polge decided to study art history. His father got him a student job at Chanel, which changed his life forever. So, just beginning, basically what it sounds like is he wanted to kind of go his own way. He wanted to do something else. He wanted to be a pianist. And apparently fate had other plans for him. Now, obviously, he wasn't necessarily born with a silver spoon. Maybe he was, but he was born with a leg up in that he had somebody who had his father who had, you know, a leg in the door, if you will, and got him an important job. So let's continue. It says, Olivier Polge immediately gave up his studies to follow the family tradition. He began some training at Ferragamo and Grasse and the Swiss family business AC&M Parfums. He began his career as a trainee at IFF, which is International Flavors and Fragrances, in 1998. In 2013, Chanel successfully poached him from there. In 2015, he took over from his father after his father's retirement as head of Chanel's entire fragrance segment. Talk about a rise to power. Some milestones of his work until then were Valentino Uomo, which I don't have, Christian Dior Homme, which I do have, Kenzo Power, which I don't have, Jill Sanders, and the collaboration on the famous Flower Bomb, which I don't have, by Viktor and Rolf. By the way, you're going to notice there's a lot of very big fragrances that are missing from my collection. So I know at the end I always say, tell me what fragrances I should fill. There's a million holes between these two because they both have so many good fragrances. So continuing, Olivier Polge has created over 150 fragrances to date for all of the world's leading designers. All of them? But working for the house of Chanel is both an honor and a challenge. The charismatic chief perfumer proudly emphasizes in interviews, since the triumph of Chanel No. 5 more than a century ago, a lot has changed in the market. However, the cult perfume can still easily defend its place on the pedestal. Olivier Polge has succeeded in honoring Chanel's signature fragrance with 2 varied new interpretations. The result is Au Premier, which I don't have, and L'Eau, which I don't have. which should also appeal to younger customers and continue to make the legendary number 5 the undisputed number 1 in the world rankings. Olivier Polge won the Prix International de Parfum in 2009, an award that honors particularly innovative and artistically outstanding achievements in the field of beautiful fragrances. In the end, his unusual career did not stop him from continuing his family's tradition and that of the House of Chanel. Fulfilling great expectations is apparently in Olivier Polge's blood. Okay, so there you have the little interesting facts blurb from Parfumo, which I love. And let's talk about the old man first, because I don't think we can really get to Olivier Polge's creations without talking about Jacques Polge. And there's a couple things that I wanted to talk about before we talk about his own creations. The first is that Jacques Polge did an absolutely amazing job while he was at Chanel. Him and Demachy created this tandem where they fed off of each other, they worked with each other, and they really kept the old perfumes, which were put out by Ernst Beau. From the old days. They mentioned number 5 in Olivier Polge intro, but also stuff like this. This is number... Is this how it's going to start? This is number 22. I thought I had it upside down for a second there. This is number 22. And if you watched my unboxing video from a couple weeks back, is it a couple weeks back? From a little bit back, let's say. This is something that I got from Anouge at Enchanté. And I'll tell you what. Sorry about the glare, by the way. I bought one of those diffusers that people were telling me about in the comments. So it doesn't arrive for 3 weeks, though. So hopefully once it gets here, it will diffuse the light and we won't get that glare that's killing these beautiful pictures of the bottle. Number 22, which I didn't know, was revered as Chanel's wedding fragrance for brides. And I almost like this more than number 5. I think I do like this more than number 5 EDT. Number 5 Eau de Cologne, that would be a tougher call. But number 22, Jacques Polge has to be given credit for keeping stuff like this modern and current and well put together through all the reformulations necessary of being an in-house perfumer. I don't know when this fragrance is from. My guess is it's probably from the 80s or 90s because this is a 19 milliliter bottle. And on the back it says compliments of Chanel. So they used to give stuff like this away. Which, in our modern day, where they give you 1 or 2 ml samples, if you're lucky, 19 ml is doesn't compute, you know, for the modern brain. But I just wanted to mention that he deserves credit for keeping stuff like that current. And one of the ones that he kept current, and I'll do a whole video on Ernst Beau one day, but one of the ones that he kept current that if you've watched some of my other videos you've seen, I absolutely adore. This is one of my favorite bottles in my whole collection. This came out in 1924 and it is called Cuir de Russie. This is an 80s bottle, okay? I'm trying to show you guys so the glare doesn't just completely eat it all up. Down, glare, down. So this 80s bottle of Cuir de Russie is one of my favorite bottles in my whole collection because, I'm going to turn the brightness down, although I want it to be bright. I also don't want it to be blinding. The reason that this is such an important bottle to me is that this came out in the 80s. Well, this version, this is an 80s bottle, I should say. And if you can see, this format is no longer in production. It's now in the Les Exclusifs bottle, which looks like this. And so this version is extremely rare, extremely hard to find. And I found this unsprayed. I did pay a pretty penny for it, but it was totally worth everything I paid because this fragrance has completely just almost changed my mind about what a fragrance could be. It is, it's so amazing. I mean, what they did with this in the 80s, I think this came out in, I want to say this came out in that they actually put this back out in the mid 80s, if I'm not mistaken, early to mid 80s. But this is a Russian leather. And there are other videos I've done that I think talk about what a Russian leather is, but there's leather, there's birch. The florals here are turned down compared to other versions, the more modern versions. From what Rich Mitch has told me, he has the Eau de Toilette, and he said that it's much more floral than this. The leather, the birch, the tobacco is amped up way more in this version, which is what I love about a leather fragrance. And so Cuir de Russie, Jacques Polge has to be given credit for keeping stuff like this current. Now, let's talk about some of the releases that actually came out under his watch. And we'll just start with my absolute favorite. This is Antaeus. You can see this is an older version where the Eau de Toilette is actually above Chanel. And Antaeus... oh, God. I mean, we're talking about, we just went from two of my favorite fragrances of all time, and they were under Jacques Polge's wing. And Antaeus is this amazing leather fragrance that uses castoreum and labdanum to create that leather accord. There's also this very aromatic opening with coriander, clary sage, but then it instantly contrasts with myrrh, which is a heavier resinous type note. So you get this myrrh, and then you get this dark rose that just kind of peeks through. It's absolutely beautiful. Oh, God. I love this fragrance so much. One of my favorite fragrances of all time. I have a backup bottle, and Jacques Polge and Demachy just absolutely knocked this out of the park. 1981 is one of my favorite years in perfumery. And to this day, Chanel is still making this. You can still buy it, although the modern formula is not what it used to be. It's a Chanel, so it's not a bad fragrance, but if you can find one that has a silver atomizer instead of black, that's what you want. And then if you wanted to go a step further, if you can find one that has a silver top instead of black here, or that has the Eau de Toilette above Chanel instead of below the Chanel, that's what you really want. But either way, as long as you get one with a silver atomizer, it's kind of like Koros. I've said as long as you get one with the silver shoulders, you're getting a good version. You could go deeper, of course, and go Parfums Corp, Charles of the Ritz, but if you just start with the basics, for Koros, if you get one with silver shoulders, you're good. For Antaeus, if you get one with the silver atomizer, you're good. I wish that they still came out with stuff like this. It was a point in time where just everything worked out perfectly in the fragrance industry, in my mind, for these kind of just designers. This is just a designer. Unbelievable. So then they follow that up in 1989. There are actually two releases that Jacques Polge makes. The first is a flanker. Now, did you see what we just did, by the way? This is important because I just jumped. Now, there are probably releases in between, but maybe not for men. I just jumped from 1981 to 1989. Think about that time frame. Whereas brands nowadays release stuff every, multiple times a year. It feels like every month sometimes. These brands are just pumping stuff out. Chanel went from 81 to 89 between these fragrance releases. I'll have to verify if there are other masculine scents that came out, but I don't think there are. This is Pour Monsieur in the Eau de Toilette Concetreé version. So the original Pour Monsieur, which is not a Jacques Polge, because it came out in the 50s. This is a flanker that he released. And so think about that. The first flanker was between 55 to 89. I can't do math, so, you know, I need a calculator. I'm just a dumb Texan. But if someone can do math, tell me, how many years is that? You know, these modern brands need to take some notes, put out a good fragrance, market it, stick with it. You know, people don't need a new flanker every month. So I like this better than the original. And then following up on Jacques Polge's legacy, we'll see later on that Olivier Polge did his own version of Pour Monsieur, the very first masculine Chanel. This is what Coco Chanel thought that a man should smell like. And what they've done here is they've used a very similar note to Antaeus, and that's myrrh. So myrrh is used here, but it's sweet myrrh. It's called a Papanax. But this fragrance and Antaeus are totally different, by the way. I didn't mean to say they were anything alike. For me, it's Antaeus all day, every day. I love Antaeus. I'm a little lukewarm on Pour Monsieur. It's just not my thing. But this is lavender, mandarin orange, petitgrand, cardamom, nutmeg, oak moss, a Papanax, vanilla, and vetiver. And so it feels like it has a little bit more heft to it than the original Pour Monsieur. But of course, it's a Chanel, so they don't make bad fragrances. But the very first flanker of Pour Monsieur came out in 1989. This is now discontinued, of course. Also in 89, Jacques Polge and Francois Demachy put out a fragrance for the house of Tiffany's. And it's called Tiffany for Men. Can you see that? Tiffany for Men in this little bottle here, and it said cologne. Men didn't wear perfume, by the way, in the old days. They didn't wear fragrance. They wore cologne. And they also liked to see for men on the bottle. They didn't want to wear any, you know, they wanted to make sure that this was a man's fragrance. This is not a woman's fragrance. That was very important to men back in the day. Not so much anymore. But this takes the Pour Monsieur DNA and amps it up even more. And that's why I like this fragrance. I actually like this even more than Pour Monsieur Concetreé, because this feels like it almost takes it to the next level. This is, so just so you know, Parfumo shows Jacques Polge as the perfumer, and I believe Fragrantica shows Demachy as the perfumer. So they work together, obviously, and I think with the next one I'm going to show you, or one of the next ones, it's the opposite. Parfumo shows Demachy, and Fragrantica shows Jacques Polge. But so I'm showing this as a Jacques Polge, but obviously his good friend Demachy had something to do with it. And Tiffany for Men also uses lavender and citruses, but they've added heavier notes. So now we've got cinnamon, we've got patchouli, we have orris, we have frankincense, and we have vanilla. So there's no Papanax like in Pour Monsieur Concetreé, but there is vanilla and frankincense and cinnamon and orris and some heavier notes, aniseed, nutmeg, stuff like that. And this is a citrus fragrance that I really enjoy wearing in the dead of summer when it's very hot. And the bottle is pretty cool. It almost looks like a belt buckle. Turn it sideways. It looks like a belt buckle for a guy. But this is now discontinued, of course, long discontinued. But one of the classic masculine scents of the late 80s. And then, 1 year further into the future, and we have this. And I don't have a cap for this because I bought this secondhand. I got a pretty good deal on it. This is Egoïste. And as you can see, this is a newer bottle. The atomizer is black, not silver. The older Egoïste bottles also had a silver atomizer. And this started out as a fragrance called Bois Noir. And Bois Noir was a flop. And Bois Noir right now is a rare fragrance to find out in the wild. There was also a Chanel Egoïste Concetreé, I believe. Just like there's a Concetreé for Monsieur, but I don't have the Concetreé. But Egoïste is a sandalwood fragrance, basically, with some other things going on. There's rosewood. I love rosewood. There's rose. There is cinnamon, carnation. I love old school carnation. Mahogany wood, mandarin orange at the top, and then there's sandalwood, tobacco, and vanilla. And there's another fragrance by Trumper called Sandalwood Cologne that is very close to this. I don't know which one came first. But unlike most people, I prefer to wear this in the warmer weather. Maybe it's because I have a newer reformulated bottle that doesn't push like the old Egoïste bottles did. But this DNA for me is more spring, summer, for whatever reason. But sandalwood is a very contemplative note for me. It's very relaxing. It puts me in a very chill state of mind. And this is one that was a big hit at the time. Once they rebranded it as Egoïste, they put out that awesome ad campaign with the women opening up the shutters in that old Italian-style villa screaming, "Egoïste, Egoïste," as the guy walked by. I think Egoïste basically means like egotistical. Almost like a maniacal, egotistical guy, you know, which is kind of a brave thing to name a fragrance, if you will. But it was a huge hit. It sold well. So that is Egoïste. And then, if we jump forward to the year 1992, this is the second collaboration between Jacques Polge and Demachy. So Fragrantica shows this as a Jacques Polge. This is Ungaro l'Homme II, which is now discontinued. This is a vintage bottle that I got off of a Nuge from Enchanté. And Ungaro l'Homme II, and by the way, Parfumo shows Demachy as the perfumer here. So I think they probably worked as a tandem. But this is also a lavender citrus fragrance, but they've added more notes again. It's almost like they kept piling on. So they started here in '89, and then the same year they released this, which feels like it just kind of added on. And then in '92 they released this, which feels like it added on again, because they took that citrus lavender DNA, they added geranium. So instantly when you see geranium lavender in your head, and there is tonka bean in the base too, by the way, you think fougere, right? That's a classic fougere structure, okay? But what they've done with this that makes it a little bit unique is it's powdery because of the orris root. So think about a fougere, classic structure fougere, beautiful narrowly in the top too, by the way, with basil. There's a lot going on in this fragrance. There's ginger, jasmine, rose, pepper, but then the base is made up of some notes that you would consider not in like a summery citrus fragrance, but in almost like a winter fragrance. There's benzoin, leather, amber, tonka bean, patchouli, cedar, vanilla, musk, and then the wild card with this one is civet. There is a dirtiness in the base, and it makes it interesting. For me, summer fragrances are boring sometimes, you know. I like some of the old school creeds like Arolfa because they used real ambergris and it was sparkly and interesting. The civet here kind of does the same thing. You know, it makes it interesting to me. And that's what's important as I'm wearing it through the day, because I wear fragrances for me, not for other people. I don't care if someone likes it or not. And that's why I stopped wearing fragrances by season for the most part. Like yesterday, it was 80 degrees in Texas. I wore Dior Homme Parfum, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Now, if I go out in public, that might project like hell, but, you know, that's their problem, not mine. Next, we are going to jump to what are we going to jump to next? We're going to jump to this, which Jacques Polge put out in 1993. This is Cristalle Eau de Parfum. This is 100, what is this? I don't want to open it because it was a pain to get back in. This is 125 ml splash that I scored from a news. Look, Chanel in Montreal, which is what I thought it said, but then I was second guessing myself. Cristalle, I don't have any experience yet. I have not given it a full wear. I haven't even had a chance to decant this yet. But from what I understand, it's a beautiful floral with some fruity notes, some Brazilian rosewood, and then the base is a little bit almost like a masculine base. Oak moss, vetiver, and I've heard Eugene say that there's almost like this stale cigarette smoke smell that you get from something like night clubbing from Celine, which I also haven't smelled. But I'm very excited to give this a full wear. I just haven't had a chance yet. By the way, I haven't even, I feel like I was so excited to do this video, I didn't even get a chance to give you guys my scent of the day. Let's do a fresh spray while we're at it. And I will tell you real quick what I'm wearing because it is a little bit unique. Let's see if I can grab the bottle real quick. I think it's right here. Is it right here? Or am I wasting your time? I might be wasting your time. Which is kind of sad because I wanted to show you guys today because this is a unique fragrance. It's called Borsalino. Borsalino. Borsalino is an Italian hat company. They were very famous in the old days for hats. Old school, I always think of like gangster hats, but I think they're awesome. I would love to own a Borsalino hat or two one day. And this is basically, this feels like a 80s citrus chiffre style. So you do get lavender in the top, with clary sage and bergamot, and then you get cyclamen, fern, jasmine, carnation. The base is amber, labdanum, leather, oak moss, musk, vetiver, and cedarwood. Good fragrance. I have a 200 ml splash that I can't find all of a sudden. Ah, here it is. How about that? It was meant to be. Come here, you. Don't try to hide, baby. Okay, there she blows. Borsalino, look, it looks like the bottle has a hat on, doesn't it? Doesn't it? Or am I crazy? I think it looks like it has a hat on. Well, it's a hat company, so that makes perfect sense. And, well, there you go. There's the dealio right now. This is a 200 ml splash. So I don't mind just going to town with this if you haven't noticed. There's the little Borsalino bee. I know we just got off topic, but I really felt like we should do scent of the day. I don't think I've done a video where I forgot scent of the day before. I'm a little off my game today. And then there's a couple more Jacques Polge fragrances that I should talk about before we go on to the sun. And the few that I still want to talk about, number one is this. This is Coromandel. Now, this came out in 2007 under the Les Exclusifs line. And then it was reintroduced in 2016 as an eau de parfum. All of the Les Exclusifs were eau de toilettes, and then they became eau de parfum. And you can see that from the back of the bottle right there. It says eau de parfum. So this is the newer eau de parfum, obviously. It says it right there. And this is one of the better patchouli scents, because you get this patchouli, white chocolate, frankincense, and orris. And I really like this fragrance, but I really wish I could have scored an eau de toilette bottle. I hear that was a superior formulation, that it's this earthy patchouli, and I really love patchouli. It's one of my favorite notes, and I really love this fragrance, but his son put out a less exclusive fragrance that I think overshadows this, in my opinion. But again, that's just my opinion. If you said, I love Coromandel more, I would say, hats off to you. I don't think I could argue with that. It's a great fragrance. But for me, I think the Sun's less exclusives outshines Coromandel. He also put out something that kind of changed the way that perfume, the direction that the I would say designer perfume world went. And that's this. He put out Bleu de Chanel. You see, I don't even have a bottle. I have a little sample. One of these pull tab samples that I absolutely hate. And I've never even used it because I know what Bleu de Chanel smells like. Trust me. This is Bleu de Chanel Parfum, by the way. But he put out Bleu de Chanel. And it's this grapefruit, pink pepper. The first blue fragrance is what it is. But it's basically this grapefruit, pink pepper thing with this ambroxan. And then, of course, Dior put out Sauvage, and the rest is history. The blue fragrance line was off. Everyone was running to put out their version of a blue ambroxan fragrance. For me, this just isn't wearable at this stage in my journey. I have a bottle of Sauvage right here. I've shown it before. This is my one blue fragrance. This is the Parfum. I like this just because of the added frankincense and elemi. And Euro was telling me there are high quality musks in these types of fragrances, which I could see, but I think this is a good starter fragrance. If you're somebody who just wants to throw something on that smells good and you're big into compliments, fragrances like Bleu de Chanel and Sauvage do that. He also put out a flanker to Allure Homme, which is called Allure Homme Sport Eau Extrême. Again, you can see I have a decant, not a full bottle, because it's not full bottle worthy to me. It's so designer-ish. It's so bland and sweet, and huge white musk in this fragrance to my nose. It does apparently smell good when it's warmer. Okay, so when it's very hot, which is always is hot in Texas now that it's end of March, it'll be hot from now until, October, until Halloween. This would be a perfect fragrance for somebody who is into the designer, just normal smelling good fragrances. Again, it's a Chanel, but for me, it just doesn't do it for me. It just doesn't get it done. I'm bored with this very quickly. Is it a good fragrance? Yeah, it's too sweet for me, but it is a good fragrance. So he did that, and changing the way that the fragrance game went is important to talk about when you talk about Jacques Polge. Now, to his son, who followed in his footsteps, I'm sure Jacques Polge is very proud. Let's start with my favorite. We'll just start with my absolute favorite Olivier Polge fragrance right out of the gate. Silver Stem Dior Homme. This fragrance, I told you I wore Dior Homme Parfum yesterday, and that's credited to François Demachy. It is a François Demachy, but anytime I wear any Dior Homme, even if it's the intense that François Demachy did, I always think about Olivier Polge's creation from 2005, the silver stem version of Dior Homme. You can actually see the Dior writing on the stem in the original bottles. This is a 2005 bottle. And this is one of my favorite designer fragrances of all time. Oh, God. I love the combination. There's also lavender in this. A lot of people don't realize this. They get the iris, they get the cacao, and they get the maybe patchouli or whatever it may be, but they don't realize there's lavender in this. And because there's lavender in the original, I think this is much more versatile than people give it credit for. I will wear this anytime. This is an anytime fragrance to me. Perfect signature scent. People say it smells metrosexual. I don't think it smells metrosexual. I think it smells like a top-notch iris fragrance, no matter what kind of iris it is. People say, oh, it's not the, special white iris or the black iris, or, I don't care about that. To me, I just love this version of Dior Homme. The modern stuff, one of the things that Dior did that made me the most angry was they released Dior Homme 2020 without the iris in it. And that just really, really ticked me off because, if you go into a shop and you wear Dior Homme and it's been years and years and you ask for Dior Homme and they give you 2020 and you go home and open it and spray it on, you're going to go, what is this? It's a travesty. They should have named it something different. I don't care if you think it's a good perfume now. That doesn't matter to me. What they did with the name is they're living off of the name like a vampire. And that just really makes me angry. But the original is a work of art. Rich Mitch has said many times before that this smells like, a painter went in there with a microfine brush and did all the details. And the new Dior Hommes Damashi just did feel like they're big broad strokes. And that's a great way to describe it. Now, for the longest time, I thought that that Olivier Polge did this as well, but he didn't, according to Parfumo. Parfumo says that this is done by Sophie Labbe, L-A-B-B-E. L-A-B-B-E. This is Valentino Uomo Intense, by the way. So rumor is that Olivier Polge did this, but apparently not, according to Parfumo. This is the older bottle before they put the spiked collar on there. And this is the one you want, apparently. I've never compared the two, but if you can find an older bottle, that's usually a safe bet. But that's another great iris fragrance that, even if Olivier Polge didn't do it, the trend that he set off because of Dior Homme transitioned into stuff like that. Now, one fragrance that I know he did in 2009, this was 2005, Dior Homme. In 2009, he created this, Ferragamo F Black Pour Homme. Now, this fragrance was hyped to high heaven by some guy you guys probably never heard of called Jeremy Fragrance. And he hyped the hell out of it, and so naturally all frag heads have to hate it. By the way, Parfumo says this is discontinued. Is that true? I get, for whatever reason, and usually I hear people compare this to La Nuit de l'Homme or stuff like that. I get a comparison to the original Dior Homme, to my nose. Now, it's different. It's not the same. The lavender is heavier. There's both lavender and lavender absolute in F Black. There's also a fruity apple note, and it's very peppery. But something in the base, there's no iris, there's no patchouli, so there's a lot different from the original Dior Homme. But there is labdanum and tonka and some sort of chemical molecule I feel like he put in this that he also put in Dior Homme. For whatever reason, to my nose, I just get almost like a fleeting similarity and then it's gone. It's the craziest thing. But every time I wear it, I get it. Every time. And this is not a revolutionary fragrance by any stretch of the imagination. But I do think that this is a respectable designer fragrance for men. Respectable. And it's an Olivier Polge. I mean, I don't think he makes bad fragrances. 1 year further, so from 2009, we jump to 2010, and this is one of the most infamous discontinued fragrances of all time, because you used to be able to get this for 20 to 30 bucks. One of the most beautiful bottles of all time. If you're a perfume lover, you know what's coming. Van Cleef and Arpels Midnight in Paris. Look at the ring light looks really pretty now on this bottle. But Midnight in Paris is 2010. Wow. He really made great designer fragrances back then. The leather in this is amazing. But it is a designer. It smells like a designer. It doesn't smell like a high-end niche or a vintage leather fragrance like Leonard Pour-Homme or Antaeus or, you know, Bel Ami, the leathers that I love. It doesn't smell like Van Cleef and Arpels Pour-Homme from the late 70s, which I love. The leather smells very modern. There's this citrus rosemary opening with lily of the valley and mate tea. The tea note is very comforting in this. I'm going to do this is not a top 10 video on the note of tea one day. And this is definitely going to be in the list because the tea note here mixed with the leather, mixed with the frankincense just gives off, it just gives off a very confident and relaxed vibe. You know, this is a great fragrance for being on vacation or lounging around the house on the weekends, or, you know, just something like that where you still want to smell good, but you're not going to the opera or something, because it is a designer. So don't pay $300 a bottle for this because you will be disappointed. It's a designer. It smells like a designer, but it's a very good designer. And this is what designers used to be. 12 years ago, this was a designer fragrance, and a good one. I wish the designer game would get back to this, by the way. I love this fragrance so much. The only thing I don't love is that my atomizer broke off, which apparently happens to a lot of people. So I just have to be careful spraying it. But I love Midnight in Paris. Now, we're going to jump to, when are we going to jump to? We're going to jump to 2015. And this is probably one of the most popular designers. Again, he's doing designers before he hits Chanel, and he does them well. This is called Dolce & Gabbana, the one Eau de Parfum. This is the Eau de Parfum. I got the 100 ml so I could just spray away if I ever decide to wear this. It's not really my thing anymore. I could totally see why people say this is a nice date night perfume, because it does smell, it doesn't project, you know, like hell, like Dior Homme Parfum I said yesterday. There's a beautiful tobacco in the base, which makes it manly. But there's something very cozy about it. The cardamom, the amber, just give off that very cozy vibe. But it's so popular nowadays that when I wear this, it's usually the only time I'll wear this is to bed if I just want to kind of remind myself what it is. It's usually not going to be my scent of the day. Now, I should mention that there were a couple other fragrances, a couple other designers that were done by him. And one of them is this. This is Burberry's Brit Rhythm Intense. Now, he did this with Dominique Ropion, by the way. He did this with Dominique Ropion, and I think even a second... I think this was a 3-perfumer trio. Let's see if I can find it here. I made notes. Where are my notes? Where are my Jacques Polge notes? Jacques Polge. Sorry, Olivier Polge. Here we go. Yes, Anne Filippo. So this is Anne Filippo and Dominique Ropion. They did the original in 2013. And then in 2015, they did this intense version. And this basically has this absinthe, wormwood, peppermint, cumin opening, which is very strange for a designer opening. But it does feel like a designer. There's a whole slug of ambroxan or cashmeran or something in the base here that really gives off that designer vibe. But there's leather, there's tonka, patchouli, amber, and gaiac wood. For a designer, and I scored this 50 ml for, I want to say like $15. You know, it's a good fragrance for a designer. But Burberry is not top on many fragrance connoisseurs' hit list for fragrances, so that doesn't get very much love. And he also did his own version of Pour Monsieur, and he did the Eau de Parfum. When did he do the Eau de Parfum? Let me look it up. I don't have it here ready. I'm not prepared today. Pour Monsieur Eau de Parfum. 2014. So he did his own take on, well, Parfumo actually shows that this is a Jacques Polge, not Olivier Polge, the Eau de Parfum. I thought that Olivier Polge did the Eau de Parfum. So we can even credit the third flanker to the old man, to Jacques Polge. But Olivier Polge obviously has the... he is tasked with keeping this current. You know, he has to keep this modern and up to date. It's a citrus Schiffer fragrance that they've added vanilla to the Apopanax. So this adds vanilla to it and makes it a little bit more heavy, a little bit more modern, and I actually like that. So that's a good fragrance. But then my favorite fragrance of the Olivier Polge era, if you will, is this. This is Le Lion. In my opinion, this is the best labdanum fragrance ever created. Ever. Hands down. I have a 7.5 ml Discovery Atomizer of Roja's Hot Luxe that he charges $3,500 a bottle for. And that's a big labdanum oak moss bomb. This is better. Le Lion is better. And the only thing that I regret with Le Lion is that I did not get the 200 ml. I got the 75 ml. I wish I would have got the 200 ml bottle because I absolutely love this stuff. And by the way, if you're keeping tabs, this is one of a handful of fragrances that Rich Mitch and I disagree on. He hates the stuff, and I love it. It's lemon, bergamot, labdanum, bourbon, vanilla, sandalwood, and patchouli. To be fair, he doesn't like vanilla. He doesn't like Shalimar and stuff like that. So there is vanilla in this, but I think it's more labdanum. This is labdanum with a little bit of vanilla, whereas Shalimar is vanilla with a little bit of labdanum. And you know, Le Lion to me is one of the best fragrances of the last couple of years of modern releases. It's so good. It's unbelievably good, and it definitely deserves all the hype that it's getting and all that stuff. It's so smoky. The labdanum turns so smoky and resinous, and I told this story the other day that in the old days, they used to let the goats go out to the labdanum plants, the cistus rock rose plants, and actually graze on the plants themselves. It almost looks like a giant poppy, and when they would graze on it, all that sticky labdanum material would get into their beards, and then they would go back to the farmer, and the farmer would use a special brush and brush out that labdanum, and that's how they would easily collect it in the old days. It's so good, though. I'm gonna wear this. I'm gonna wear this in the Texas heat. I don't even care. But we had to combine them together because you know, the father-son combo, they're just kind of linked they're linked by blood, but also by profession. And Olivier Polge has done an amazing job keeping the legacy that his father created at Chanel going. And so I just thought I was going to only do Olivier Polge today, but then I thought I can't. I mean, I have to include Jacques Polge. So we kept this under an hour. It's only 49 minutes here. Only 49 minutes. And I would love to hear your thoughts on some of these fragrances. I would love to hear your thoughts on which ones I should really go for that these two amazing perfumers have done. You'll notice that from Olivier Polge, I don't have Spice Bomb. I don't have Queer Beluga. I don't have Invictus. There's a lot of stuff that I don't have that are some pretty big hits, even in the fragrance community. So if there's some you think I should go for, let me know. If you have feedback on some of these fragrances that we talked about, please let me know. I love seeing your faces below. I appreciate all of the support and the comments, and a like and a subscription, of course, is always appreciated, but you don't have to, of course. And I hope you enjoy these Perfumers portfolio videos. I'm doing them, you know, strictly with the intent of trying to highlight the men behind the brands, because 99% of people, they see this and they think that, you know, Chanel is the perfumer or whatever it may be. Even though she's dead, they might think it's her formula, or, you know, they don't understand that there's a person, a perfumer behind it, and then they have their own team, of course. But the perfumers deserve more credit, in my opinion. I've had a lot of success finding a perfumer that I love and going for their formulas rather than specific brands. So I just thought I would highlight some of the bottles from my collection from these two legends, Jacques Polge and Olivier Polge. By the way, in Parfumo, get a blurb up about Jacques Polge. He's one of the best perfumers of the last 40 years. That's a travesty. There's no blurb about Jacques Polge, the father. So I hope you appreciate these videos. I know they are lengthy. I hope you learned something. And I will see you guys again tomorrow with another video. Cheers. Bye-bye.